Everyone in the human design space is going to tell you what type you are. They're going to tell you if you are a generator, if you are a projector, a manifester, a reflector, a manifesting generator. They're going to tell you about your strategy and your authority. And all of that is real. All of that matters. But here's what nobody is telling you. Your type tells you how to make decisions. Your profile tells you who you actually are. And if you've been sitting on your YouTube channel, starting and stopping, showing up and disappearing, feeling like you know what to do, but somehow still not doing it, I want you to consider that it's not a discipline problem. It's not even a strategy problem. It is an identity problem. You have been trying to build a YouTube channel based off someone else's blueprint, someone whose profile is completely different from yours. But here's the thing that most people do not realize about profiles. A 1-4 is not the same as a 4-1. A 2-5 is not the same as a 5-2. Position matters. The order matters. Everything changes based on which line is conscious and which line is subconscious. When you understand how your conscious and subconscious lines actually show up, everything shifts. That's what this video is, okay? We're going to break down all 6 lines today, what each one brings to your energy and your visibility. Then we're going to show you exactly how your specific profile combination lands on YouTube. And we're going to show you where your most magnetic content actually lives. So find your profile, but before we get there, we need to understand the foundation. So let's start with the lines. Okay, so line 1 is the investigator, the researcher, the foundation builder, right? When you have line 1 anywhere in your profile, you are dealing with someone who has a primal need for a solid foundation before they move. Okay, so this is not like intellectual, this is more visceral. And it's the difference between standing on solid ground and standing on quicksand. I want you to think about like a builder constructing a house, okay? So before they lay a single brick, they dig down, they pour the foundation, they make sure that everything that comes after is built on something that will hold, right? Okay. A line 1 does not care how beautiful the house is going to be if the foundation is shaky, right? They care about what's underneath. So when it comes to the core needs, the line 1 has almost like a physical need to understand how things work, okay? Before they will engage with them. They want to know the rules. They study the system. They gather information until they feel safe enough to actually take the action. And so this shows up as the person with like 20 tabs open on like 3 different browsers, right? It's the one who reads the manual before they use the thing, right? The researcher, okay, who cannot move forward until they have studied every angle, right? The person who asks 1,000 questions before they commit. And it's not that they don't trust, okay? It's that they just need to know what they're standing on. So the gift of line 1 is credibility, authority, a grounded understanding that cannot be shaken because it was built on genuine knowledge. When a line 1 speaks, people listen. Not because they're super like charismatic, but because you can feel the research behind their words. You can feel that they did not arrive at this casually, okay? They arrived here through study, through investigation, through making sure they were standing on solid ground before they opened their mouth. So a line 1 brings kind of a safety to whatever space they occupy, right? There is a settledness to them, a Like, I know what I'm talking about because I actually took the time to understand this energy that is actually incredibly magnetic. Now, the wound of a line 1 is the fear that the foundation will never be solid enough. That there is always one more thing to learn, one more book to read, one more certification to get, one more angle to understand before they are actually ready. Thus, this can show up as perfectionism. As a Virgo, I can understand this one, okay? And analysis paralysis, if you will, right? Like, as the person who knows more than anyone in the room, but still feels like they do not know enough to speak. Okay? So the line 1 wound is the belief that readiness is a destination that they have to arrive at. When in reality, okay, readiness is just something they already carry. So a line 1 at its healthiest, right, understands this. And it's that the foundation is not the only thing that they are waiting to complete. Okay, so if that's you, I want you to say, my foundation is what I have already built through the work I have already done. All right? So a line 1 who has integrated this stops waiting to be ready and starts letting their research speak for itself. Okay? So they move from I need to know more before I can share this to I have studied enough. Now let me bring what I know. That is the line 1, the investigator, the foundation, the solid ground that everything else stands on. So then we have line 2. And line 2 is the natural, the hermit, the gift without effort, honey. When you have a line 2 anywhere in your profile, you are dealing with someone who has innate talents, skills that seem to come without trying, abilities that other people have to work for, but that the line 2 just has, right? And you other people can be a little jealous of that, right? Think about someone who picks up an instrument and plays it by ear. Oh my gosh, right? Someone who walks into a room and immediately knows how to calm the energy. Someone who solves problems in a way that feel effortless because for them, they are. But here's the thing about line 2s that people get wrong. And it is that the line 2 does not want to be seen for their gift. At least not in the beginning anyway. Not in the beginning, right? They want to be left alone. They do, right? They want to do work in privacy, right? They want to perfect their craft without an audience watching them do it, right? The line 2 is fundamentally introverted about their talent. And so the line 2 needs space. They need solitude. They need the freedom to work without being called upon, right? They need to know they can retreat when they need to, that they do not have to be on all of the time, that their gift will still be there even if they step away for a little while. And so this shows up as the person who recharges in isolation, who feels drained by like constant visibility, who would rather work behind the scenes than be in the spotlight. They have something genuinely valuable to offer, but they don't necessarily want to offer it. Right? So the line 2 does not naturally seek the stage, right? The stage has to come find them. Now, the gift of the line 2 is natural talent. It's ease, it's grace, it's an ability to do difficult things in a way that looks simple because it feels simple to them. So when a line 2 shows up, there is no strain, right? There's no pushing, there's no forcing. They just move through their work like water moves through a river. I know that sounds so weird, water moving through a river, right? But that's how simple it is for them. And people can feel that ease, right? They feel the naturalness of it all. They feel like they are watching someone do what they were born to do. And so a line 2 at their best does not have to try hard. Their gift, it speaks for itself. And that quality of effortlessness is incredibly magnetic because so few people in the world operate from that place. However, the wound of the line 2 is being seen before they are ready. It's being called out. It's being asked to perform their gift on demand when what they actually need is the freedom to work on their own timeline. And so this can actually end up showing up as resentment. It's like a resistance almost to visibility, because as the feeling that being asked to share their gift somehow diminishes it or makes it less pure. The line 2 wound essentially is the belief that if they have to try, if they have to promote themselves, if they have to be visible, then their gift is no longer genuine. So the line 2 can kind of feel like visibility is a violation to their natural rhythm. And so the line 2, though, at its healthiest, understands this. And if you're a line 2, come on, repeat after Kiana. My gift does not become less authentic when I choose to share it. My ease does not disappear because I step into visibility. I can be both naturally talented and intentionally present. Okay? You got that? Perfect. Because a line 2 who has integrated this stops waiting to be discovered, okay, and starts recognizing that their unique ease is exactly what the world needs to see. They need to move from I should not have to promote this to I can share this in a way that still feels natural to me. And so that is line 2. The natural, the gift that needs no effort, the talent that speaks for itself. And so line 3 is the experimenter, the martyr, the trial and error, right? When you have a line 3 anywhere in your profile, you are dealing with someone who learns by doing. Me, right? Not by studying, not by planning, but by actually trying the thing, bumping into what does not work, adjusting and trying again. The line 3 is the person who figures things out through experience. So think about a chef who learns to cook, not by reading recipes, but by being in the kitchen, burning things, tasting things, right? Figuring out what works through repetition and failure. Or an athlete who gets better not by watching videos, but by actually playing the game over and over until their body knows what to do. That is line 3 energy, right? So when it comes to the core need, right, the line 3 needs permission to fail, to experiment, to try things that might not work. They need the freedom to be messy in the process of discovery. And so this shows up as the person who dives in without a plan, who learns as they go, who is not afraid of making mistakes because mistakes are just data. The line 3 moves through life gathering evidence through their own experience rather than someone else's instructions. Makes sense why I couldn't figure it out with a lot of coaches, right? But the line 3 does not wait until they have a perfect plan. They figure it out as they go. And so their gift is real world wisdom. It's knowledge that came from actually living it, from trying it and seeing what happened. When a line 3 speaks about something, people listen because they can feel that the person did not just read about it in a book. They lived it. They tested it. They have the battle scars and the stories to prove it works, right? And so a line 3 becomes an expert, not through study, but through experience. And that kind of expertise is magnetic because it is earned. It is real. It has been proven in the actual world, not just theory. However, the wound of the line 3 is the belief that they have to be perfect before they can teach, that they have to have it all figured out before they can speak. This resonates so much for me. But the line 3's whole superpower is the mess. It is bumping into things. It is trying and failing and adjusting and trying again. And the line 3 often spends their whole life apologizing for that process, when actually that process is their greatest teacher. Now, the line 3 wound is thinking their path has to be like straight, when actually their power comes from all the different detours. So, the line 3 at its healthiest stops apologizing for how they got where they are and starts owning the journey as proof. They move from I do not know enough yet to I know this because I actually did it and here's what happened. This is actually how I'm running my channel if you've been paying attention, right? That is line 3, the experimenter, the wisdom that comes from actually trying. Now, the line 4 is the opportunist. And just like the martyr from line 3, the name might need some context, right? Because the opportunist does not mean calculating. It does not mean manipulative. It does not mean someone who is always looking for an angle. It just simply means someone whose entire life moves through people. So think about a garden, right? A line 4 is not the seed that gets planted in random soil and hopes for the best. A line 4 is the seed that gets planted in a community garden where the right neighbors, the right conditions, the right relationships create the environment for everything to grow. So the line 4 does not thrive in isolation, they thrive in connection. And so the line 4 needs a network, not a large network necessarily, but a deep one. People they trust, people who trust them, people who will open doors, make introductions, refer others, and show up. It matters. This shows up as the person who always seems to know someone, who gets opportunities through relationships rather than cold outreach, who builds loyalty over time rather than chasing reach, who would rather have 10 people who genuinely believe in them than 1,000 strangers who barely know their name. So the line 4 does not perform for crowds. They build with people. Now, the gift of line 4 is warmth. It's loyalty, an almost immediate sense of familiarity that makes people feel like they have known them forever, even when they just met. And so when a line 4 shows up, people feel seen. They feel like this person is actually interested in them, actually remembers them, actually cares about what happens to them. And that quality of genuine relational presence is one of the most rare and valuable things a person can carry. Now, a line 4 at their best does not have to chase opportunities. Opportunities come to them through the relationships they have genuinely invested in over time. Now, the wound of line 4 is trying to build in isolation, right? It's trying to grow through strategies and systems and platforms rather than through the people who already love them. And this can show up as feeling like their network is not big enough, or feeling like they need more followers before they can make real moves, feeling frustrated that the tactics are not working when what is actually missing is the relational depth that makes everything else convert. The line 4 wound is forgetting that their power was never in their reach. It was always in their relationships. And so A line 4 at its healthiest understands this, and repeat it with me. My network is not a strategy, it is my natural environment. The people who already know me, trust me, and believe in me are not just my warmest leads. They are my distribution system, my word of mouth, my most powerful form of visibility. So a line 4 who has integrated this stops trying to go wide and starts going deep. They move from I need more people to know about me to I need to show up more fully for the people who already do. That is line 4, the opportunist, the connector, the one whose power lives in the people around them. Line 5 is the guide, the practical solution, the one people look to when they need an answer that actually works. When you have a line 5 anywhere in your profile, you are dealing with someone who carries what human design calls a projection field, which is simply a fancy way of saying people project onto you. They see you in the answer to their problem before you even have opened your mouth. They put you on a pedestal. They tell other people about you. They send people to you. They look to you as the person who has figured it out. And the wild thing is, most line 5 people do not feel like the guide. They just feel like themselves, right? So think about that one person in your friend group who everybody calls when something goes wrong, the car breaks down, the relationship falls apart, the business hits a wall, and everybody's first thought is to call her. She will know what to do. She always knows what to do. That is line 5 energy, the person everyone reaches for when they need a real solution. And so the line 5 needs to be seen accurately, not put on a pedestal so high that no human could live up to it, not projected onto so heavily that the real person underneath gets lost. The line 5 needs people to see them for who they actually are, not just for what they can solve. This shows up as being very careful about what they put out into the world, being strategic about how they show up, feeling the weight of being looked to as the answer and taking that responsibility seriously. The line 5 does not take their influence lightly because they can feel that people are listening. Now, the gift of the line 5 is the ability to see the practical solution, right? It's to cut through all of the noise and complexity and get straight to actually what works, to take something that feels overwhelming and complicated to everyone else and make it feel simple and doable. So when a line 5 speaks, people feel relief, like someone finally said the thing that makes sense, like the fog just cleared, like, okay, now I know what to do. A line 5 does not just inspire people, though. They move people. They give people something they can actually use. And that is a very specific and powerful kind of gift. However, the wound of the line 5 is the weight of the projection field. The feeling that people expect more from them than any human being could actually deliver, that if they show up imperfectly, if they do not have the answer, if they get it wrong, the disappointment will be crushing. This can show up as hiding, staying small, refusing to put themselves out there because the expectation feels too heavy. Or, on the other side, burning out from trying to be the solution for everybody all the time. The line 5 wound is believing they have to be everything to everyone, when their actual gift is being the right thing for the right person at the right time. So, a line 5 at its healthiest understands this, and repeat after me. I do not have to be everything. I just have to be real. When I show up as who I actually am, grounded in what I actually know, the right people will find me and the projection field will work in my favor instead of against me. Okay? Because a line 5 who has integrated this stops hiding from their influence and starts trusting it. They move from the expectation is too much to my genuine knowledge is enough. That is line 5, the guide, the practical solution, the person everyone reaches for when they need an answer that actually works. Now, line 6 is the role model. That's also me. And out of all 6 lines, the line 6 has the most layered and complex journey because the line 6 does not arrive at their purpose quickly. They earn it slowly over time through 3 very distinct phases of life. It's rough. Trust me. Think about a wise elder in a village, not someone who reads about wisdom in a book, someone who actually lived long enough, experienced enough, and reflected deeply enough to become the person that the whole village turns to. Not because they asked for that role, but because they earned it through the fullness of how they lived. That is line 6 energy. Right? And so there are 3 phases, right, that the line 6 moves through. And understanding these phases is everything, and it's helped me a lot, right? So phase 1 happens roughly in the first 30 years of life. And in phase 1, the line 6 lives like a line 3. They experiment, they try things, they bump into walls, they make mistakes, they go through experiences that sometimes feel chaotic or painful or confusing, and they wonder why their path looks so different from everyone else's. This phase is not a mistake. This phase is the gathering. The line 6 is collecting raw material, living experience, building the foundation of what they will eventually embody. Now, phase 2 is called the rooftop phase. And this is where the line 6 climbs up, gets perspective, and begins to observe rather than experiment. They pull back from the chaos of phase 1. They start to process everything they went through. They begin to integrate, to make sense of it all, to let the wisdom from phase 1 settle into something deeper and more stable. Oh my gosh, this hits so much for me. The rooftop phase can look like withdrawal from the outside, like the line 6 got quiet, got still, stopped throwing themselves into things the way they used to. And that is exactly right, because they are not hiding, they are integrating. And phase 3 is where line 6 comes down from the rooftop. And when they come down as the role model, as living proof of what is possible, as the person whose life itself becomes the teaching. The line 6 needs time, space, the freedom to move through their phases without being rushed or judged for where they are in the process. They need permission to experiment in phase 1 without being defined by it. Permission to withdraw in phase 2 without being seen as checked out. And permission to step into their role model energy in phase 3 without having to explain or justify the journey that got them there. Okay? So the gift of line 6 is embodied wisdom, not just knowledge, not just experience, but the kind of deep knowing that only comes from having actually lived through all 3 phases and come out on the other side. So when a line 6 speaks, people do not just hear information. They feel the weight of a life fully lived behind every word. There is depth to them, a quality of having been tested and having come through that makes everything they say land differently. A line 6 at their best does not teach what they know. They become the living example of what they teach. And that is the most powerful thing a person can be. However, the wound of a line 6 is being rushed through the phases, being told they should be further along, being judged for the chaos of phase 1 or the quietness of phase 2 before they have had the chance to fully integrate and emerge. And so this can show up as feeling behind, feeling like they wasted time, feeling like their path was too messy or too slow, too different to be taken seriously, right? Like the line 6 wound is the belief that they should have arrived sooner. Now, the line 6 at its healthiest understands this. Every phase was necessary. The experiments of phase 1 gave me my depth. The rooftop of phase 2 gave me my perspective. And phase 3 is not something I have to rush towards. It is something I get to step into when I am ready. Because a line 6 who has integrated this stops apologizing for their timeline and starts trusting that the fullness of their journey is exactly what makes them worth following. So that is line 6, the role model, the one whose life becomes the proof. Okay, so now you understand the 6 lines, right? What each one brings, what each one needs, the gift and the wound of each. But here's where it gets really specific to your YouTube channel. You do not just have one line, you have 2 lines, and those 2 lines are in a specific order, and that order changes absolutely everything about how you are wired to show up on camera on your channel. A 1-3 is not the same as a 3-1, a 2-5 is not the same as a 5-2, a 3-6 is not the same as a 6-3, right? The line that is conscious, the one you feel and are aware of every day, that one is going to show up very differently than the line that is subconscious, the one your audience experiences from you even when you are not consciously performing it. And when you understand your specific profile combination, when you understand how your 2 lines actually work together, everything shifts. You stop trying to be someone else's YouTube channel and you start building the channel you were actually wired to build. So find your profile and what comes next. And when you see yourself, when you read something that makes you go, oh my gosh, that's exactly me, I want you to really let that land, because that is not a coincidence. That is recognition. And recognition is where the real change begins. Let's get into it. If you are a 1-3, your entire YouTube channel lives in the tension between 2 things. Your conscious line 1 wants to show up prepared, researched, grounded. It wants to know that the foundation is solid before you open your mouth. It wants to make sure you have done the work before you share the work. And your subconscious line 3 is out here living a whole entire life full of experiments and pivots and things that worked and things that absolutely did not work and stories that your audience would pay money to hear. And the magic of the 1-3 is this. You do not just bring the research, you bring the receipts, okay? So think about a food critic, right, who does not just read about restaurants. They actually go. They actually eat. They actually have the experience, and then they come back and tell you exactly what it was like. The research tells them what to look for. The experience tells them what is actually true. That is you. Your line 1 gives you the framework, and your line 3 gives you the proof that the framework actually works in the real world, right? So where do the 1-3s get stuck on YouTube though, right? The 1-3s often get stuck waiting for the foundation to feel complete enough before they share the experiment. They want to have the full answer before they show the messy middle. But your audience does not need the full answer, Bookie. They need the honest journey, the research, and the reality together. Okay, so your YouTube sweet spot, your channel is the place where preparation meets lived experience, where you say, here's what I studied, and here's what actually happened when I tried it. That combination is what makes people stop scrolling and say, this person is the real deal. You're the real thing, honey. So what about being magnetically visible? Well, you were not built to show up with just theory, and you were not built to show up with just stories. You were built to show up with both at the same time, every time. That is your channel. That is your content. That is how you are wired to be seen. If you are a 1-4, here is what is happening every single time you show up on camera, whether you realize it or not. People feel safe. Not because you're performing safety, not because you practice being warm, but because your conscious line 1 is bringing solid, researched, trustworthy knowledge, and your subconscious line 4 is wrapping all of that knowledge in a relational warmth that makes people feel like they already know you. You essentially you are essentially the brilliant friend who also happened to do all the research before you called, right? Think about your doctor, and I'm not the cold clinical one who barely looks up from their clipboard. We're talking about the one who actually sits down, who asks how you're doing, who explains things in a way that makes you feel like a human being and not a case number, right? Who clearly knows their stuff, but makes you feel like the most important person in the room while they're sharing it. That is the 1-4 on YouTube, okay? Now, here's where y'all get stuck. The 1-4 gets stuck chasing polish, chasing authority, trying to sound more professional, more credible, more expert. And in doing so, they accidentally turn down the very thing that makes them magnetic. Because here's the truth. Your audience is not in the comments saying, your content is so well researched. They are saying things like, I feel like I've known you forever. You feel like a friend. I watched 6 of your videos in one sitting, and I do not even know why I cannot stop. And the 1-4 reads those comments and thinks that is sweet, but it is not serious feedback. Oh, but honey, it is the most serious feedback you will ever get, because people do not hire strangers. They hire people they feel like they already know, and your audience already feels like they know you, okay? So what about your YouTube sweet spot? Well, your channel is the place where expertise meets intimacy, where people come for the knowledge and stay for how you make them feel, where every video feels less like a lesson and more like a conversation between 2 people who trust each other. You do not need to be more polished. You need to let people in more. So let's talk about your magnetic visibility. Your foundation makes people trust you. Your warmth makes them stay. And the combination of those 2 things is what turns a casual viewer into a client who was never going anywhere. That is your channel. That is how you are wired to be seen. Okay, 2-4, I see you over there watching this video from a distance, not fully committing to the idea that this applies to you. That is the most 2-4 thing I have ever seen, and we are not even 2 sentences in, honey. Here's what's actually going on with you. Your conscious line 2 has been trying to protect something. Your solitude, your privacy, your ability to do what you do without having to perform it for an audience. Now, the line 2 does not naturally seek visibility. It seeks space. And the idea of a YouTube channel where you have to show up consistently and be seen regularly can feel like a direct attack on everything your conscious line needs to function, essentially, right? And then there is your subconscious line 4 quietly doing its thing without your permission, making everyone who comes into contact with you feel like they have known you forever. Building warmth and trust and loyalty in people who barely know your name yet, creating a sense of community around you that you did not ask for, but that keeps showing up anyways. Think about that friend who never tries to be the center of attention, but somehow always ends up being the person everyone wants to be around. This is the one who shows up and does their thing and leaves a room full of people saying, I just really love her energy. I do not even know why. I just feel good when she's around. Honey, that is you. Now, here's where you get stuck on YouTube. right? The 2-4 gets stuck trying to show up on everyone else's schedule. They hear that consistency means posting every single day, and they immediately want to quit before they even start, because that kind of demand on their energy is not sustainable. It is not how they are wired. And forcing it produces content that feels flat, it feels disconnected, because it was created from an empty tank. Now, here's the thing about YouTube that was made for you specifically. YouTube does not punish you for going away. A video you posted a year ago can still be found today. Okay? The platform keeps working for you while you are in hermit mode. You can batch content when your energy is full, schedule it out, and disappear back into your cave while YouTube distributes it for you. This platform was built for the 2 line, whether it knew it or not, right? Now, your YouTube sweet spot, your channel is the place where natural gifts meet genuine warmth, where people show up for what you know and stay because of how you make them feel, where you do not have to try to be magnetic because you simply already are. You batch when you are full, you rest when you need to, and your audience stays because the line for loyalty you build does not require your daily presence to maintain it. So let's talk about your magnetic visibility, right? You do not need to manufacture magnetism. You are magnetic. The work is simply creating the conditions where your gifts can land without burning you out in the process. Rest is part of your content strategy. Solitude is part of your content strategy. And showing up when you actually have something to give will always outperform showing up every day with nothing left in your tank. Okay? So that is your channel. That is how you are wired to be seen. If you are a 2-5, I need you to think about something for just a second. How many times has someone sent another person to you? How many times has a friend said you need to talk to her? She will know what to do. How many times have you been the person someone else's people end up finding because word got around that you have the answer, right? Maybe more times than you can count, right? And you probably still cannot fully explain how it happened, because from the inside, you were just doing your thing, living your life, and sharing what you know when someone asked. Not trying to build a reputation. You're not trying to become the go-to person. It just happened, right? That's the 2-5 in action. Your conscious line 2 wants to stay in its lane, do the work privately, not be bothered, not be called upon, not have to perform its gifts on demand. And your subconscious line 5 is out there building a projection field so powerful that people are sending strangers to you before you have even decided you are ready to be found, right? So think about a healer who lives quietly on the edge of a village. They are not advertising. They are not out there trying to get clients. They are just living, doing what they do, minding their business, but word travels. Someone got helped, they told someone, that someone told someone else, and now there's a line forming outside a door that was never even officially open. That is you. That is you, my boo. Okay? Now here's where you get stuck on YouTube though. The 2-5 gets stuck in the gap between the privacy their line 2 craves and the projection their line 5 is already generating, whether they like it or not. So they resist building a channel because it feels like stepping into a spotlight they did not ask for. But here's what they do not realize. The spotlight is already on them. People are already looking. The question is not whether you will be found. The question is whether you will have a place for people to go when they find you. So, a YouTube channel for a 2-5 is not an announcement. It is simply a door, a place for the people who are already being sent to you land. Now, your sweet spot, Your channel is a place where quiet expertise meets unexpected impact, where you show up, share what you know, and let the projection field do what it was always going to do anyways. You do not need to try to be the answer. You already are the answer to the right person's question. Your job is simply to show up with your genuine knowledge and let YouTube put you in front of the people who are already looking for exactly what you carry. Now let's talk about your magnetic visibility, right? The most magnetic thing a 2-5 can do on YouTube is stop trying to manage how they are perceived and just show up as themselves. Because the projection field is going to do its work regardless. And the more authentic your presence is, the more the right people will find you and stay. Now, your solitude is sacred and your gifts are real. Your channel does not have to feel like a performance. It just has to feel like you. That is your channel. That is how you're wired to be seen. If you are a 3-5, I need you to hear something before we go any further. Everything you have been through was on purpose. Not in a spiritual bypass kind of way, okay? Not in a everything happens for a reason, you just have to trust the process kind of way. In a human design, literally wired you to learn through experience so that you could become the most credible, battle-tested, genuinely useful person in the room kind of way, right? Like every pivot, every chapter that ended before you were ready, everything you tried that did not work the way you planned, every moment you thought, I cannot believe I have to start over again. That was not failure. That was your curriculum. So your conscious line 3 has been gathering evidence your entire life, right? Trying things, bumping into walls, figuring out what actually works through the very unglamorous process of figuring out what does not. And your subconscious line 5 has been quietly turning all of that evidence into something that other people experience as the practical solution to their exact problem. So think about a wilderness guide, not someone who studied maps in a classroom, someone who has actually been lost in the woods, who has navigated in the dark, who has made wrong turns and found their way back, who knows every trail, not because they read about it, but because they walked every single one of them with their own feet, right? When that person tells you which way to go, you listen, not because they have a certificate on the wall, but because you can feel that they have actually been there. Buki, that is you. Now, where the 3-5s get stuck on YouTube, y'all get stuck in shame around the journey, right? Y'all look at the non-linear path and think nobody's going to take me seriously if they know how many times I changed direction, right? And so these 3-5s try to present a polished, cleaned up version of their story that leaves out all the parts that actually make them credible. And here's the truth. The mess is the message. Bow, right? The pivots are the proof. Bow. The fact that you tried it and it did not work and you adjusted and tried again is exactly why someone should listen to you over everyone else who is just theorizing from the sidelines. Your failures are not the thing you hide. They are the thing you lead with. So when it comes to your sweet spot on YouTube, right? Your channel is the place where real experience meets practical wisdom, where you say, here's what I tried, here's what actually happened, here's what I learned, and here's how you can use what I went through so you do not have to go through it yourself. That is not just content. That is service. That is saving someone years of their life by being willing to be honest about yours. So let's talk about your magnetic visibility, right? The most magnetic version of you on YouTube is not the polished expert. It is the honest guide, the one who has been in the trenches and came back with real information. So stop waiting until the story is clean enough to tell. The messy version is the one that changes lives. That is your channel. That is how you are wired to be seen. 3-6 gang gang, y'all, my peoples. Now listen, if you are a 3-6, I want you to take a breath before we get into this, right? Because what I'm about to say might bring up something in you, and I want you to have room for it, okay? You have lived more chapters than most people experience in an entire lifetime. You have tried things that did not work. You have been through experiences that changed you in ways you are still processing. Okay? You have rebuilt yourself more than once. And there have probably been moments where you looked at your life and thought, why has my path been so hard? Why has it taken so long? Why does it still feel like I am not where I'm supposed to be yet? Oh my gosh. Listen, I want you to hear this clearly as a fellow 3-6. You are not behind, you are building. Your conscious line 3 has been gathering raw material your entire life. Every experiment, every pivot, every chapter that ended too soon or hurt too much or taught you something you did not want to learn. That was not chaos. That was the foundation of everything you are about to offer the world. Oh my God, I'm getting emotional. And your subconscious line 6 has been quietly integrating all of it, processing, observing, climbing up to the rooftop and getting the kind of perspective that only comes from having actually lived through something real. I want you to think about a sculptor, right? Not someone who learned to carve in a weekend workshop. Someone who has been working with stone for decades, who has made pieces that cracked, who has started over, who has learned through their hands and their mistakes and their persistence exactly how to bring something beautiful out of raw material that nobody else could see the potential in. When that sculptor creates something, it carries the weight of every piece that came before it, every lesson, every correction, every moment of starting over. That is what you carry, and your audience can feel it. So here's where we be getting stuck on YouTube, right? The 3-6 gets stuck waiting to feel finished. Oh my gosh, right? Like waiting to feel like they have fully arrived before they allow themselves to be seen as the example. This is why I'm doing 100 videos in 100 days. But here's the thing about the line 6 that is so important to understand. You are never going to feel finished. That is not a flaw in your design. That is the design, right? The line 6 is always integrating. It's always evolving. It's always becoming more of what it was always meant to be. And the people who need you do not need you to be finished. They need you to be further along than they are and willing to turn around and show them the path. You are already that person right now in this chapter, exactly as you are. So let's talk about your YouTube sweet spot, right? Your channel is the place where lived experience meets embodied wisdom, where you show people not just what you know, but what you have become through the knowing of it. The 3-6 does not need a niche. The 3-6 is the niche, okay? Your evolution is the content. Your becoming is what people are subscribing to. Every chapter of your journey is a chapter of your channel. And the most powerful thing you can do is let people witness the arc in real time. So let's talk about your magnetic visibility, right? The most magnetic version of you on YouTube is not the polished expert who has it all figured out. It is the living example who is still in the process of becoming and is willing to be honest about what that actually looks like. You're not given this path so you could hide it. You were given this path so you could light the way for everyone who is walking a few steps behind you. That is your channel, and that is how you were wired to be seen. So if you are a 4-1, I want you to think about something. How many times has an opportunity come to you through a person, not through a marketing campaign, not through an ad, not through a perfectly optimized funnel, but through a conversation, a relationship, someone who knew you and said you need to talk to her. Oh, excuse me. More times than you can count, right? So that is not luck. That is your design. Your conscious line 4 is one of the most powerful networking energies in all of human design. Not networking in the collect business cards at a conference kind of way, right? Like networking in the I genuinely care about the people in my world and I invest in those relationships, and those relationships become the foundation of everything I build kind of way, right? So the line 4 does not build through strangers. It builds through people, real people, people it actually knows and trusts and has history with. And because of that, the loyalty of the 4-1 that the 4-1 generates is not the kind that comes from a viral video or a trending post. It is the kind that comes from genuine human connection. And that kind of loyalty does not leave. And then there's your subconscious mind 1, right? Quietly grounding everything, providing a depth of knowledge and credibility underneath all of that warmth that your audience feels even when you are not explicitly talking about it. Think about a beloved professor, my husband, not the intimidating one who makes you feel like you do not belong in the room, the one whose office door is always open, the one who remembers your name and asks about your project from 3 semesters ago, who makes you feel like a person, not a student number, right? But who also knows their subject more deeply than almost anyone else in the field. You leave their class feeling both smarter and more seen. That is the 4-1 experience. So where do y'all get stuck? Okay. The 4-1 gets stuck trying to grow through strangers when their whole design is built to grow through people they actually know. Okay. They try to crack the algorithm. They try to go viral. They try to reach the masses before they have fully invested in the people who are already right in front of them. And it feels like pushing a boulder uphill because it is not how they are wired to move. The 4-1 channel does not explode overnight. It grows the way real relationships grow, slowly at first, and then all at once when the network effect kicks in, the people who already know and love and trust you start telling other people. And those people come already warm, already ready, already halfway sold before they have watched even a single video. So let's talk about your YouTube sweet spot, okay? Your channel is the place where depth meets warmth, where people come for the knowledge and stay because of how you make them feel, where every video feels like an invitation back into a world they already feel at home in. You do not need to perform authority, boo. You have it. You do not need to manufacture a connection. You create it naturally. What you need to do is show up consistently for the people who are already in your world and trust that they will bring everyone else. So let's talk about your magnetic visibility, okay? Your network is your distribution strategy. The people who already know you, love you, and trust you are your most powerful marketing. Not your thumbnails, not your titles, not your posts. Well, hold on. But still do good on the titles and thumbnails. But it is also your people, right? So show up for them consistently, genuinely, and let them do what they were always going to do, which is bring everyone else along. That is your channel. And that is how you are wired to be seen. If you are a 4-6, I want you to think about something. Look at the people around you, the ones who have stayed, the ones who keep coming back, the ones who show up for you, not just because of what you know, but because of who you are and how you live, and the way being in your presence makes them feel like they are part of something that actually matters, right? That is not an accident. That is literally your design working exactly the way it was always meant to. Okay. So listen, your conscious line 4 is building community everywhere it goes. Not on purpose necessarily, not with a strategy or a plan, but because the line 4 has a gift for creating the kind of genuine human connection that turns a group of individuals into a family. People do not just follow the 4-6, they belong to the 4-6. And there's a profound difference between those two things. And your subconscious line 6 is doing something even more powerful underneath all of that community building. It is becoming the living example, the role model, the person whose life itself becomes the teaching. Not because you set out to be someone's North Star, but because you have been doing the work, honey. You're doing the work. You're living your values, integrating your lessons, and people have been watching and quietly using your life as a blueprint for their own. So, think about a woman who has been quietly mentoring people for years without ever calling it mentoring. She just shows up. She shares honestly. She lives in alignment with what she believes. And one day she looks around and realizes that dozens of people have made significant life decisions based on watching how she navigated hers. Not because she told them to, but because her life was the example. That is the 4-6, the most quietly powerful presence in any room they walk into. Okay, so here's where y'all get stuck on YouTube. Now, the 4-6 get stuck believing that their channel needs to be about something, like a specific topic, like a defined niche, a clear content category that they can point to and say, this is what my channel is about. But the 4-6 channel is not about a topic. It is about a person. It is about you, your values, your evolution, your willingness to show up honestly and let people into the real process of building a life that is actually aligned with what you believe. People do not subscribe to the 4-6 for information. They subscribe because being in your world feels like being part of something real. And you cannot manufacture that. You can only live it and let the camera in. So your YouTube sweet spot, right? Your channel is the place where community meets embodiment, where people come because they feel like they belong there, where your comment section feels less like an audience and more like a gathering of people who have found each other through finding you. Yeah, that's so cute. You build up, you build by showing up, honestly, right? By sharing not just what you know, but how you are actually living. By letting your evolution be visible in real time. By trusting that the people who need what you carry will find you and stay. So let's talk about your magnetic visibility. The community you build is the proof of what you teach. When people show up for your content and feel seen and connected and like they belong to something real, that is not a side effect of your channel. That is the channel. That is the thing you are here to build. And the more you lead by living it honestly, the more your community becomes the most powerful marketing you will ever have. That is your channel. And that is how you are wired to be seen. If you are a 5-1, let me tell you what is happening on the other side of your content, whether you are aware of it or not, honey. People are sending your videos to their friends. Not because you asked them to, not because you had a perfectly optimized call to action, but because someone watched something you made and immediately thought of 3 other people who needed to hear exactly that. And they forwarded it, and they shared it, and they said, you have to watch this. She explains it in a way that actually makes sense. This is the person I've been looking for. Hiccups, all right? And you're probably sitting there genuinely confused about why people are responding so strongly to something that felt pretty straightforward to you when you actually like recorded it, right? That is the 5-1 experience. Your conscious mind 5 is aware of the weight it carries. You know people look to you for solutions. You feel the expectation, the projection, the sense that once you put something out into the world, people are going to take it seriously and run with it. And that awareness makes you careful, thorough, deliberate about what you share and how you share it. And your subconscious, line 1, is underneath all of that, doing something your audience can feel even when you are just casually talking. It is providing a foundation so solid, so researched, so genuinely grounded that everything you say lands with a weight and a credibility that most creators spend years trying to build and never quite achieve. Okay? So think about a brilliant architect who is also great at explaining things to people they work with. Now, they know the structural engineering. They know the building codes. They know every technical detail that makes a building safe and sound. But when they sit across from a client, they do not lecture. They listen to what the person actually needs. And then they translate all of that deep expertise into a clear, practical answer that solves the real problem in language anyone can understand. That is 5-1 on YouTube. Deep foundation, practical translation, clear solution, honey. So here's where y'all get stuck on YouTube, okay? The 5-1 gets stuck in the weight of the projection field, okay? They feel the expectation that people have of them, and it makes them overthink everything. They spend so long making sure something is perfect before they post it that the posting never happens. Or they post and then immediately second guess whether it was good enough, accurate enough, helpful enough to justify the expectations people have placed on them. Here's what I want you to understand. The projection field is not a burden, okay? It is a signal. It is the universe telling you that people are already ready to receive what you carry. The question is not whether you are good enough, boo. It's not about whether you're good enough to meet the expectation. The question is whether you are willing to show up and let people experience what they already sense is there. Okay, so let's talk about your sweet spot on YouTube, okay? Now, your channel is the place where deep expertise meets practical application, and I love that. Where people come with a real problem and leave with a real answer. Where every video feels like someone finally explained the thing in a way that makes actual sense, right? So you're not here to inspire people, and you are here though to solve things for people, and that is an incredibly specific and incredibly powerful thing to be on YouTube, where millions of people are typing their problems into a search bar every single day, hoping someone out there actually has the answer, okay? You are that somebody. Now let's talk about your magnetic visibility, right? The most magnetic thing a 5-1 can do on YouTube is trust that the depth is already there and stop trying to prove it. You do not need more preparation. You do not need more credentials. You do not need to make it more complicated or more impressive or more polished than it already is. You need to sit down, you need to press record, and you need to give people the answers they came looking for, okay? That is your channel. That is how you are wired to be seen. If you are a 5-2, I need you to do something for me right now. I need you to think about the last time someone told you that you made something look easy, that you had a natural gift for something, that they could not believe how effortlessly you understood something that they had been struggling with for months, okay? Now I need you to think about how you responded to that, right? Because I am willing to bet that you kind of brushed it off, that you said, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Oh, I just figured it out along the way. Oh, honestly, anyone could do it if they just paid attention. And then you moved on without really taking in what that person was trying to actually tell you, okay? That is the 5-2 in a nutshell. Okay, y'all be just a little bit knowing, right? Your conscious line 5 knows that people look to you for answers. You feel the projection field. You are aware that once you step into visibility, people are going to have expectations of you and you are going to have to deliver. And that awareness can make you strategic and careful and sometimes a little hesitant about how much of yourself you actually put out there. And your subconscious line 2 is over here being naturally gifted at things in a way that you genuinely cannot fully see or explain. Because to you, it does not feel like a gift. It just feels like how you think, how you process, like how you move through the world. It feels like breathing. And the idea that other people find it extraordinary is genuinely intriguing to you, right? Think about someone who grew up in a household where a second language was spoken. They did not study it. They did not take classes. They just absorbed it because it was part of their environment from the beginning. And now as an adult, they are completely fluent. And when people find out, they're just always amazed. Like, oh my God, you speak 2 languages, right? And this person is just baffled because to them, it never felt like an accomplishment. It just felt like something they could do. Like, oh yeah, I could speak 2 languages, right? That's the 5-2 in their gifts. Fluent in something that other people are working really hard to learn and barely aware that the fluency is remarkable. Right? So here's where the 5-2s be getting stuck on YouTube, okay? Now, a 5-2 gets stuck in 2 places at the same time, and they pull in opposite directions. So the conscious line 5 is managing the projection field, right? Thinking carefully about how they show up, making sure they can back up what they put out there, not wanting to overpromise or underdeliver or disappoint the people who are already looking to them for answers. And then you have your subconscious line 2, who just wants to be left alone. It does not want to have to be on. It does not want to have to perform its gifts on a schedule. It wants to do what it does naturally without an audience watching it happen. And so the 5-2 often ends up frozen between those 2 things, right? Too aware of the expectation to be casual about it, too private to want to step fully into the spotlight. And so they end up doing neither fully, right? And here's what I want to say to that. Your naturalness is not something you have to protect from the camera. Your naturalness is the thing the camera was made to capture. Yes, the effortlessness that you feel on the inside is exactly what your audience experiences on the outside. And that combination of genuine ease and practical wisdom is one of the most magnetic things a person can bring to a YouTube channel. So let's talk about your YouTube sweet spot, okay? Your channel is the place where effortless expertise meets unexpected depth, where people show up thinking they are just going to get a quick answer and end up staying for 2 hours because they cannot believe how much sense you make and how easy you make it feel to understand. You do not need elaborate production. You do not need complicated frameworks or multi-step systems laid out on a whiteboard. You need to sit in front of a camera and talk about what you know the way you would talk about it to a friend who asks you a question. That is it. That is the strategy, because the naturalness is the strategy. Now, let's talk about your magnetic visibility. The most magnetic version of you on YouTube is the one that stops overthinking and starts talking. You picking up what I'm putting down? Okay. Not the version that has scripted everything perfectly. Not the version that has prepared for every possible question. The version that trusts that what comes out naturally is already more valuable than most people's most carefully crafted content. Okay. Now, your gift does not need to be dressed up. It just needs to be shared. That is your channel. That is how you're wired to be seen. If you are a 6'2", I need you to stay with me for this entire section, because what I am about to say is going to land differently than anything else in this video. And I want you to actually let it in instead of nodding along and moving past it before it has had a chance to really settle for you, okay? You were not just born to create a YouTube channel. You were born to be witnessed, okay, honey? And there is a profound difference between those two things. Now, most people create a YouTube channel to share information, to teach something, to grow an audience, to sell something. And all of those things are real and valid. And of course, things that I teach people how to do, okay? But the 6'2" creates a YouTube channel because their life itself is the content. Their becoming is what people are subscribing to. Their evolution, their integration, their willingness to show up and be seen in the fullness of who they are and who they are becoming. That is what makes people come back. Not the information, not the strategy, not the tactics. Your conscious line 6 has been on a journey, a long one. And depending on where you are in your life right now, you may be in the thick of phase 1, still gathering and experimenting and bumping into things. Okay, you may be on the rooftop in phase 2, observing and integrating and making sense of everything that you went through. Or you may be feeling that pull downward into phase 3, that quiet but unmistakable sense that it is time to come down from the rooftop and step into the fullness of who you have been becoming. And your subconscious line 2 is underneath all of that, doing something that you probably cannot see in yourself, but that everyone around you has been trying to tell you for years, okay? You make it look natural. Not easy necessarily, not without complexity or depth or the weight of everything you have carried, but natural. Like you were simply born to be the person you are becoming. Like there is a grace to how you move through your life that feels almost inherited rather than achieved. Think about a dancer who has been dancing since they were 3 years old, right? By the time they perform as an adult, it does not look like work. It looks like they were born to move exactly that way. But you know there are decades of practice behind every seemingly effortless movement, every stumble, every correction, every time they fell and got back up and tried again. Your audience sees the performance, you know the practice, and both of those things are true, okay? And both of those things are beautiful. So here's where the 6'2s get stuck on YouTube, right? Now, the 6'2 gets stuck waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel like they have fully integrated enough, evolved enough, arrived enough, finished enough to step into the role of the person other people are meant to witness. And the rooftop phase does not help with this because the rooftop phase by design creates some distance from the world, some quietness, some sense of being and process rather than in performance. And it can be very easy for the 6'2 to stay on that rooftop long past the point where they were meant to come down, because coming down means being seen, and being seen means being witnessed, and being witnessed means trusting that what you have integrated is actually enough to offer. Here's what I want to say to that, okay? The people who need you do not need you to be finished. They need you to be further along than they are and willing to turn around and show them what the path looks like from where you are standing right now, okay? You are already that person. You have been that person. The only thing standing between you and the channel you were born to have is your willingness to let the camera see what the people closest to you have always been able to see, okay? So let's talk about your YouTube sweet spot, okay? Now, your channel is the place where embodied wisdom meets effortless presence, okay? Where people show up and feel like they are witnessing something, not just learning something, witnessing something. Okay, you got that? Okay. The 6-2 does not need a niche. The 6-2 is the niche. Your life is the content. Your evolution is the series. Your becoming is the thing people are subscribing to. Watch unfold in real time. And the more you allow the camera to see the real arc, the phases, the integration, the moments of clarity, and the moments of confusion, and show the slow, beautiful process of becoming who you were always meant to be, the more magnetic your presence becomes. So let's talk about your magnetic visibility. The most magnetic thing a 6-2 can do on YouTube is simply be witnessed. Not perform, not teach, not optimize. I mean, you could teach if you want to. Just show up as the full, complex, evolving, integrating, becoming version of yourself, and trust that the right people will find you and feel exactly what they needed to feel when they do. Your naturalness is not incidental to your channel. It is the channel. Your evolution is not the backstory. It is the story. And the world has been waiting for you to let them see it. That is your channel. That is how you are wired to be seen. If you are a 6-3, I want you to take a breath before we get into this. Not a polite breath, a real one, okay? Because what I'm about to reflect back to you as your residential reflector is going to require some space to actually receive. And I do not want you to rush past it the way the 6-3 sometimes rushes past their own story, because they have been through so much that they have almost gotten used to not stopping to acknowledge what they have actually survived. So breathe and let this land, okay? You have not just had a life. You have had several. You've had multiple chapters, multiple versions of yourself, right? Like multiple experiences that each could have been their own complete story. And you are still here, still building, still becoming, still showing up even after everything that has tried to stop you or slow you down or make you question whether it was worth continuing. That is not ordinary. That is extraordinary, okay? And it is exactly what makes you one of the most powerful presence that can exist on YouTube. Your conscious line 6 has given you perspective that cannot be manufactured, okay? The kind of perspective that only comes from having lived through enough phases of life to see the long arc, to understand that what looks like failure in chapter 3 is actually set up for chapter 7. To know in your bones that the hard seasons are not punishments, they are preparation. And your subconscious line 3 has given you something even more rare. It has given you texture, realness, the unmistakable quality of someone who did not just theorize about the thing they are teaching. They lived it. They tried it. They bumped into it in the dark at 2 a.m. and figured out where the edges were through direct contact. Think about a war correspondent who spent decades in some of the most difficult places in the world and then came home and wrote a book about peace. Every word in that book carries the weight of what they witnessed. Every insight about reconciliation comes from having seen what happens when reconciliation fails. The depth of experience behind the words changes the quality of the words, and the reader can feel it. They can feel it even if they cannot explain why. That is the 6-3. The elevation of the 6 and the groundedness of the 3. The long view and the lived experience. The wisdom that came from the rooftop and the wisdom that came from the trenches, both at the same time from one person. There is nobody else who can offer what you offer. Nobody. So here's where the 3-6s, the 6-3s get stuck, right? And get stuck in a very painful place, right? So They can feel the weight of everything they have been through, and instead of recognizing it as their greatest qualification, they treat it as evidence that their path was too messy, too complicated, too nonlinear to be taken seriously. They look at people who seem to have had straighter paths and cleaner stories and think that nobody wants to hear about all of this. It is too much. It's too complicated. It does not fit into a neat package. But here's the truth. The mess is not the problem. The mess is the proof. The complexity is not the obstacle. The complexity is the credential. The fact that your path has had that many chapters is not something to apologize for. It is the very thing that makes every word you say land with a weight that simpler paths simply cannot produce. Your story does not need to be cleaned up before you tell it. It needs to be told exactly as it happened, because the person who needs you most is not looking for a clean story. They are looking for someone who has been through something real and came out the other side with something true to say about it. So, your YouTube sweet spot, right? Your channel is the place where hard-won wisdom meets lived truth, where people show up and feel like they are in the presence of someone who has actually been through it, not theorized about it, not studied it from a distance, actually lived it in a way that left marks and taught lessons and produced the kind of knowing that cannot be faked. The 6-3 creates content that does two things at the same time. One, it honors the full complexity of the journey, okay? And it distills that complexity into something the person watching can actually use right now in their own life. You are not just teaching. You are translating, taking everything you have lived through and turning it into a language that someone else can understand and apply and be changed by. That is a rare and extraordinary gift, okay? So let's talk about your magnetic visibility. The most magnetic version of you on YouTube is the one that stops trying to make the story simpler than it is and starts trusting that the full version is exactly what someone needs to hear. Not the highlight reel, not the cleaned up version, not the story that starts where it got good and then skips everything that happened before. The whole arc, the experiments, the rooftop, the integration, the emergence, all of it. Because somewhere out there is a person who is in the middle of a chapter that you have already survived. And they need to know that someone came through it, that it is survivable, that there is something worth building on the other side. You are that person for them. And your channel is the place where they finally find you. That is your channel. That is how you were wired to be seen. So, here is where I want to leave you. Your profile is the how. It is how you are wired to show up, how your audience experiences you, where your natural magnetism actually lives on camera. And I hope that somewhere in this video you had a moment where you thought, oh, okay, that's me. That is exactly me. That is why it has felt so hard to show up the way other people show up, because I was never supposed to show up that way, right? You were supposed to show up your way. And now you know what that looks like. But here is what we did not cover today. Your profile tells you how you are wired to show up on YouTube. Your centers tell you what you are actually here to talk about. Your defined and undefined centers, right? Those specific energies you carry in your unique chart, that is where your actual content topics live. That is where your messaging finds its roots, right? That is the difference between creating content that feels sort of aligned and creating content that feels like You finally found your language, okay? And that is exactly what we go deep on inside of YouTube by Design. So YouTube by Design is a program inside of the Magnetic Visibility Circle Premium that takes essentially everything you just learned about your profile, but it goes a layer deeper, right, into your centers, your 9 centers, into the specific content territories that are actually aligned to your unique human design chart. Not content ideas someone else gave you, not trending topics that have nothing to do with who you are, your topics built from your chart. Okay, so the link to join the Magnetic Visibility Circle Premium is in the description below. YouTube by Design is waiting for you inside. I will see you there. Let's go build something magnetic.